Hey everyone, and welcome back to Profs Training, the podcast that tries to make sense of the wild world of work. I'm your host, Brian Edmonds, and today we're diving deep into something that affects pretty much every single person who gets a paycheck. The Fair Labor Standards Act, or as I like to call it, the FLSA, sounds like a fancy dance move, doesn't it? To help us break down this sometimes confusing set of rules, we have a very special guest with us today, Sarah Coleman. Sarah has been with the Department of Labor for a whopping 20 years, so she's seen it all. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Happy to be here. And no, the FLSA is definitely not a dance move, though sometimes employers try to do a little jig to get around it.
Oh, I bet. So, Sarah, in a nutshell, what exactly is this FLSA thing we keep hearing about?
Well, Brian, think of the FLSA as the rule book for how most workers in the U.S. should be paid. It sets the basic standards for things like the minimum wage, overtime pay, and even rules around child labor. It's been around since 1938, so it's not exactly new, but it's still super important.
Right, the minimum wage. That's something everyone understands, at least the basic idea. What's the current federal minimum wage?
As of now, it's $7.25 an hour. Now, it's important to remember that some states have their own minimum wage that might be higher, and in those cases, the higher wage is what you're entitled to. It's like if your state says you get $10, but the feds say $7.25, you go with the 10. It's like getting extra fries with your order. Always a good thing. Haha.
Exactly. More money, more problems, or maybe just more coffee. Now, what about those folks who get tips? I always wondered how that works with the minimum wage.
Tipped employees. This is where it can get a little tricky. The FLSA allows employers to pay tipped employees a direct wage of as little as $2.13 an hour as long as their tips bring them up to at least the federal minimum wage. This is called taking a tip credit.
Wait, $2.13? That's less than a cup of coffee these days. So what happens if they don't make enough in tips?
That's where the employer has to step in. If the employee's tips plus that $2.13 don't add up to $7.25 for every hour they worked, the employer has to make up the difference. They can't just shrug and say, well, better luck next time with those tips.
That makes sense. So, the employer is basically guaranteeing the minimum wage one way or another. Now, I've heard horror stories about employers trying to dip into the tip jar themselves. Is that a no-no?
Absolutely a no-no. Employers, managers, and supervisors cannot keep any portion of employees' tips, period. There are rules about tip pooling, where tips are shared among certain employees, but even then, it has to be fair and transparent. If your boss is caught with their hand in the tip jar, that's a big red flag and definitely something to report.
Good to know. Okay, let's talk about overtime. That magical time when you work more than 40 hours in a week and suddenly your paycheck looks a little happier. What are the basics there?
Right, so for most non-exempt employees, any hours worked over 40 in a single work week must be paid at least 1.5 times their regular rate of pay. So, if you normally make $10 an hour and you work 45 hours, those extra 5 hours should be paid at $15 an hour. It's like a little bonus for putting in the extra effort.
A much-needed bonus, especially when you're staring down a mountain of work. Now, are there any exceptions to this overtime rule? I've heard some jobs are exempt.
Yes, there are certain exemptions for specific types of employees, like those in executive, administrative, or professional roles, as well as some computer professionals and outside sales folks. But these exemptions have very specific criteria, and employers can't just slap an exempt label on someone to avoid paying overtime. We see a lot of misclassification issues where employers try to pull a fast one on this.
Misclassification, huh? So, someone might be doing the work of a regular employee but getting labeled as exempt to save the company money? That sounds shady.
It can be, and it's a serious violation. The actual job duties and responsibilities are what determine if someone is truly exempt, not just their job title. If you're constantly clocking in and out and don't have much decision-making power, you probably shouldn't be classified as exempt.
Got it. So, it's about what you do, not just what your business card says. Makes sense. Now, I know the FLSA also talks about hours worked. What exactly counts as time you should be getting paid for?
Generally, it includes all the time an employee is required to be on duty at the workplace or at a prescribed place. This can include things like waiting time if you're on call, travel time if it's part of your job, and even some training time. It's not just the time you're actively typing on a keyboard or serving customers.
So, if my boss makes me come in 15 minutes early to set up, that's time I should be paid for?
Absolutely. If it's work that benefits the employer and you're required to do it, that's compensable time. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Good to know. What about breaks? Are those always paid?
Not necessarily. Short breaks, usually lasting from 5 to 20 minutes, are generally considered working time and must be paid. However, longer meal periods, typically 30 minutes or more, don't have to be paid as long as the employee is completely relieved of their duties during that time. So, if you're still answering emails while you're trying to eat your sandwich, that might still count as paid time.
The eternal struggle of trying to actually take a lunch break. Now, Sarah, I imagine with all these rules, there are some common mistakes employers make. What are some of the big ones you see?
Oh, Brian, the list could go on. But some of the most frequent violations we see are misclassifying employees as exempt when they shouldn't be, failing to pay the correct overtime, especially when calculating the regular rate of pay which includes certain bonuses, and messing up the rules for tipped employees. Also, not keeping accurate records of hours worked and wages paid is a huge problem. If you don't have the records, it's really hard to prove compliance.
Record keeping sounds crucial. What kind of records are employers supposed to keep?
They need to keep detailed records for each employee, including their name, address, date of birth if they're under 19, their occupation, hours worked each day and week, their regular rate of pay, and all the details of their wages and any deductions. It's pretty comprehensive. Think of it like keeping a good diary of all the work and the pay that goes with it.
Like a work diary, but hopefully less angsty than my teenage one. So, if someone thinks their employer isn't following these rules, what should they do?
The first step is often to try and talk to their employer. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. But if that doesn't work, or if they're not comfortable doing that, they can absolutely file a complaint with the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor. We take these matters very seriously, and we can investigate to make sure workers are getting paid what they're legally entitled to.
That's good to know there's a place to turn. What kind of penalties can employers face if they break these rules?
Penalties can include having to pay back the unpaid wages and overtime, plus an equal amount in liquidated damages. For repeated or willful violations, there can also be civil monetary penalties, and in some very serious cases, even criminal prosecution. It's definitely not something employers should take lightly.
Wow, those are some serious consequences. So, Sarah, for our listeners out there who want to learn more about the FLSA and make sure they're in the know, where can they find more information?
The best place to go is the Wage and Hour Division's website at dole.gov/agencies/WHD. They have tons of resources, fact sheets, and even the full text of the regulations. It's all there in plain language, or at least as plain as government regulations can be. Links you can also find the specific regulations in the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, or ECFAR, under Title 29, Chapter 5. The best place to go is the Wage and Hour Division's website at dole.gov/agencies/WHD. They have tons of resources, fact sheets, and even the full text of the regulations. It's all there in plain language, or at least as plain as government regulations can be. Links you can also find the specific regulations in the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, or ECFAR, under Title 29, Chapter 5.
Excellent. Sarah Coleman, thank you so much for shedding some light on the Fair Labor Standards Act for us today. It's definitely good for everyone to have a basic understanding of these rules.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Work It Out wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next time with more insights into the world of work. Until then, take care and make sure you're getting paid what you deserve.
Thank you, viewers, for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your colleagues. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button below, so you never miss out on valuable insights. I'm Brian Edmonds, signing off. See you in the next one.